Welcome to the part 5 of the series of tutorials on C. This is Gauri Naik speaking for Logix Computer Academy. In this video, we are going to learn about single dimension arrays and why and how they are created and how do we write programs using arrays. Suppose we want to enter marks of 5 students. There are two ways in which we could do this. In the first method, we could declare 5 variables like so. So we have here 5 addresses in which we could store marks of 5 different students. But what if we had to store marks of 100 students? It will not be possible to declare 100. Or even if we had to store marks of 10,000 students, it's a tedious task. So we could use another method using the for loop. In this method, we would be declaring only one variable, n, in which we'll store marks of 5 students inside a loop. So when I is on 1, we would input the marks of the first student in n, and then when I becomes plus plus and becomes 2, we would be storing the second student's marks. But hey, here there's a problem. When we take the marks of the second student in n, the marks of the first student, which were already stored in n, would be overwritten with the marks of the second student. So when we finish the loop, the variable n will contain the marks of only the last student, and we have lost the data of the 4 previous students. So this method is also not feasible if we have many students and if we want to retrieve the data. This is where arrays are useful. In arrays, you can declare just one variable but create many addresses at the same time. Like so. Here we have declared that we would like to create 5 addresses in the memory, which are called as variables in the name of n. And all these will contain integers. So here you can see that we have created, with the help of this declaration, we have created 5 addresses in the memory, and each address will be called as n0, n1, n2, n3 and n4. An array always starts with the subscript 0. This is called the subscript of an array or the index number, and the index of an array always starts with a 0. So if we were to take data in the array, we could use a for loop as follows. So we declare I starting with 0 and we stop at less than 5 because an array will stop at 4, and when we are taking the values from the user, we would take it in n of I, which means that if I is on 0, whatever the user has input will go in n of 0. When I becomes plus plus and it becomes 1, then the next input will go into n of 1 and so on. So this is the way we take the input from the user. This has helped us not only to create 5 different addresses, we can also access all the elements in the array with the help of the for loop again. Let us see how this is written with the help of a program. So here we have declared the dimension of the array as n of 5. If we want to initialize an array, we could do it in the following manner. This is the way we can initialize an array. With this declaration, 5 values are input in 5 different addresses, so the dimension of the array, which need not be declared here, is automatically taken as 5, since we have input 5 numbers in the array. This is called as initialization of an array. But if we want to take the input from the user, then we have to declare how many elements we require in the array. So here we have declared we require 5 elements in the array, and then we would use the for loop and write the program as follows. So if we were to input marks of 5 students, we could use the for loop the I would start with 0. I would go to less than 5 since the array starts with 0 and ends at 4. After starting the for loop, we take the data from the user with the help of the scanf statement. When we input the data, it has to go in n of I, which means that when I is on 0, the data would go in n of 0 and so on. So this is the way we declare an array, and we take the input from the user and assign it to each element in the array. If we were to print the elements in the array, we would again require the for loop as follows. So this is how we take the elements from the user in an array, and again if we want to print them, we have to use the for loop, so that when I is on 0, it will print the first element in the array, that is at n of 0, and when I becomes 1, it will print the element at n of 1 and so on. So let's write a program in which we'll take the marks as input and add them and print the average marks. So here we declare an array of 5 integers. We declare another variable called aggregate, which will show us the sum of the marks. We need to initialize this with 0, and we also need another variable called average. Now when we take the marks from the user, we can add it to aggregate like so. After the loop, we need to find the average, and then we could print the aggregate as well as the average. Let's run this program and see. So we need to input marks of 5 students, and you can see that it has printed an aggregate which is 0, and the average is also 0, but it has printed all the marks again for you, showing that it has stored them in 5 different variables. Let's see why it has printed 0 for the aggregate and average. Here we have not typed the equal to, which means that we need to add n of I each time to aggregate. So now it has printed the aggregate and the average. The average does not seem to be the exact average. This is because we have tried to divide an integer by an integer. If we require a float value to be printed, so when we divide an integer by an integer, it will always give us the answer as an integer, although it is stored in a float. So we need to typecast this. Here we declare that aggregate in this expression will be typecast into a float and then divided by 5. Let's see the difference. So here you can see that it has printed the average correctly now with 58.2%. So this is the way we use arrays. Now the things to remember about an array is that you need a constant value in the declaration of an array. You cannot have a variable in these brackets. You need a number in these brackets, and it is a finite set of elements. So this is the way you would use a single dimension array. You will see about double dimension arrays in the next video. We'll also see how to use arrays with functions. Please rate, comment or subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.